Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Delighted.
We don't have a lot of time. We got to get right to work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, I guess the big question I have is Ernie Moniz is up here. Do you like Ernie Moniz? Is he a good secretary?
I think he's fabulous. I think Ernie's great.
Is that an easy? If he wasn't fabulous, would you say that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, listen. Secretary Moniz is great. He's an action-oriented guy. He's smart. Comes from a great background. I think he's a dynamite choice. Doing a great job.
The reason that I wanted to interview you here is I heard you gave a talk. I heard you give a talk in Aspen a couple of years ago.
Right.
In which you talked about carbon, and you talked about ways to constrain carbon and how to deploy that. You've just opened this Mississippi plant that Margaret just mentioned, but beyond that, you're taking things to China. And
you bet.
I'm interested
in Eastern Europe, big deal.
You're one of the big power guys, and
right.
you also deploy your energy to among the lowest socioeconomic constituency in the United States. So folks that don't have a lot of money who have to pay for energy. So I'm interested in how you get smart energy choices when the economics aren't necessarily there.
You hit a lot of issues there, but boy, let me tell you something.
We got 7 minutes, so.
It is so foundational. The point you make. When I think about, and I talk about national energy security, I work at the Business Roundtable,
right.
co-chair that effort. When I think about the challenges in the economy we see right now, 46%, to think about the constituents I serve, 46% of the families we are privileged to serve make less than $40,000 a year.
Right.
And their energy budget is relatively inflexible. And when you think about all the other challenges we face, our ability to balance clean, safe, reliable, affordable energy for their benefit is enormous. And what we've been able to do, we're the only company...
So the strategy for those people typically is coal, because coal is super cheap.
Well, but when you say, what is the strategy? Clean, safe, reliable, affordable, we've got to balance those things. As CEO of one of the largest, we're a little bit smaller, but similar in size to the nation of Australia. This is a big company. Mm. What we have to do is figure out ways to make all those work. It is not just clean. It is not just affordable. We've got to put ands in there. And we've been able to do that. We're the only company in America doing proprietary, robust research and development. We developed our own technology to essentially consume low-grade coal with a carbon footprint less than natural gas, and we take the CO2, which is not a waste stream. In this case, we use it to produce more domestic oil.
Is that what you have in Kemper Project?
That's what we're working on right now, yeah.
So how do you turn everything into a Kemper Project?
Well, you don't, because...
And why don't we pay for that to have China absorb 1,000 Kemper projects?
Well, in fact, what we have to do is build the full portfolio. And I've got this on YouTube if you want to see the whole thing, the whole kind of pitch. But the idea is we need nuclear, dominant solution in a carbon-constrained world. 21st century coal, where we manage the CO2, natural gas, renewables, energy efficiency. The technology that we're talking about at Kemper County, Mississippi, which has had its challenges, we have signed 2 agreements in China. China could use probably 30,000 megawatts of this technology themselves. It is impractical to believe that the rest of the world will not continue to consume coal. What we've got to do is find ways for those folks to consume it in a responsible way. Eastern Europe, when you think about a nation like Poland, which probably has the vast majority of their energy produced by low-grade coal, they're at the end of Gazprom. Not only is it high gas prices, here in the United States we have these sub-$4 gas prices right now. China, Poland, $15 gas prices. And geopolitics of being on the wrong side of Gazprom. Holy smokes, these ideas can make a lot of sense.
You know, yesterday Boone Pickens was here, and Boone Pickens used to be seen as the oil guy. Now he's the natural gas guy. When I told people I was going to be interviewing you, they said, he's the nuclear guy. They look at you as the big nuclear power. After Fukushima, and you've talked about nuclear here a little bit, how do you deal with the public, and what are you doing internally after Fukushima to sort of deal with this constant concern that nuclear, while it may help with carbon in the air and climate, nonetheless is creating other spin-offs that just undermine our health, our safety,
Well, let me say this. The nuclear guy.
Yeah. Are you the nuclear guy?
I'm the full portfolio guy. Southern Company is the only company in America leading the renaissance of new nuclear, building responsible coal, made a huge shift to natural gas. We're the third largest consumer in the United States of natural gas. One of the largest players in solar in America. One of the leaders in energy efficiency. No other company in America is doing that full portfolio. When people say all the above, most of that's rhetoric. Southern does action, not rhetoric. Now, with respect to nuclear, it has taken a great deal, shall we say, vision and courage to continue the path of new nuclear in spite of Fukushima. One of the things you must know is that the technology we're deploying in Georgia is the safest, most reliable nuclear technology on the planet today. Further, the circumstances around Fukushima...
I'm going to interject, but how do you know that?
Because the design is completely
different. Who tells
different.
you this is the really safe plant, this is a really unsafe
piece of cake.
Yeah.
When you look at what happened at Fukushima, they had an earthquake. And the plants started tripping off as they should have. But where things got bad is when they had the tsunami that took out all the external power sources.
Right.
And they couldn't get the water where it needed to be in the time of an emergency. The major design difference, and that was relatively old technology. The new technology, Westinghouse AP1000, essentially has the water right above the reactor. And you don't even need an external power source in the time of an emergency to get the water where it needs to be. The power of gravity, Newton's law, is what will deliver the water where it needs to be. So it's much more resilient. 70% less valves, pipes. It's a great technology, we believe. It's also, we're not on a coastline. We're not in a seismic sensitive area. So there's a lot of reasons why we need to go forward. And one more thing. So Secretary Moniz, great guy. If you believe that carbon is important to this nation's future, nuclear is a dominant solution. There's only a company that must go forward with nuclear in America has three characteristics. It's got to have scale. This project we're building in Georgia, $14 billion over 10 years. You better have scale because you can't bet the company. You've got to have the highest level of financial integrity. It's going to take 10 years, that amount of money. You know you will go through the vagaries of the world's financial markets. You better have staying power. Third, you better have credibility of operations. Nuclear is no business for beginners.
You know, there's something we've covered a lot of terrain in 7 minutes. But one of the areas, when I step back and look at the Washington Ideas Forum, that I would have liked to have had a whole other component on was China. You're dealing with China.
You bet.
China, when you think about climate change and various efforts you might put forward to really make an impact, nothing works unless you get China and India in a big way. In your dealings with China, I just want to ask, how does it work? I mean, in just a snapshot, and is there the capacity to absorb a killer app, a technology, something that fundamentally changes their choices in a systemic way? Or do we just all sink as the water rises?
This is why I'm the portfolio guy, I think. When you look at China, the demographics are so overwhelming. The numbers are so big. No single killer app will solve the problem. And they have an enormous issue to deal with. They have growth, and they have an environmental issue that if you've ever been to Beijing, you've seen it. On some clear days, you have trouble seeing several blocks away.
I'm usually eating it.
Yeah, maybe.
Eating or breathing.
So the point is, the Chinese, with all their scale and growth, have to think about ways to balance this clean, safe, reliable, affordable obligation. And I think there is a very clear place for this kind of technology solutions, not rhetoric, to have a place in the Chinese energy future, and I think we can help.
Just to wrap up, we're pretty much out of time. You have been someone who's been bold out there saying, take away all my goodies and benefits from the government. I mean, you guys you've gotten billions of dollars of taxpayer money for some of your companies, and you said you'd give all that up for a lower tax rate. What do you need to make it work, to really invest in R&D? You've said to President Obama, take this stuff away.
Here's my point. We don't want tax policy deciding good business practice. Clean, safe, reliable, affordable. I think I know how to deploy that. I don't need signals from the IRS on how best to do that. Here's what I would propose. Get rid of essentially all tax preference items, probably aside from accelerated depreciation, which have been around for, I guess, since the 80s.
Give us short form.
What it would be is get rid of all that stuff, no investment tax credit, production tax credit, alter fuels credit, get rid of all that stuff, give me a 25% tax rate, still some accelerated depreciation, I'm in.
There you are. Tom Fanning, Southern Company. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.